Hey everybody, it's Jay. So I recently went through a tutorial for Azure Bicep. And Bicep is a language for declaratively deploying Azure resources. So it uses a particular domain-specific language for deploying your Azure Resource Manager templates rather than having to write all the JSON that's typically associated with it. So I've got some documentation up. This is the Bicep documentation. You can find it on the following URL that I'll put in the chat here. Let's go. Bicep documentation. And you can get a whole bunch of really great info, how to get started, how to install Bicep. And one of the easiest ways to work with Bicep is AZ Bicep using the Azure CLI. So you don't necessarily need to install it locally. And then Bicep itself, what it does is decompiles your Bicep code into JSON. And that JSON eventually allows you to create your resources. So I recently found this great documentation. I want you to take a look at what is infrastructure as code. It's a really great doc, and essentially Bicep helps us with our infrastructure as code process. And one of the things that I've really liked using is this particular Bicep deployment tutorial. And so what this is going to do is actually help you do this deployment via GitHub Actions. So you're able to utilize the suite in GitHub to automate your software development workflows in the same place you store code and collaborate on pull requests and issues. So you can essentially deploy your software and your infrastructure using a single template. Now, the workflow that we're going to be using, it's in YAML, and we're going to create it. We're going to configure authentication. So we need to create a service principal within Azure. We can do that all here on the VS Code terminal side using AZ CLI. And then we're actually going to do a deployment. And so that deployment will be basically kicking off our GitHub action. So rather than spend a lot of time talking about it, why don't I start getting into the actual work? All right. So you can go to this particular doc that'll help you this tutorial. If you go ahead and you hit the link that's in the description of this video, if you haven't been able to find it, let me go ahead and share it for you. So here, I'll put it in the chat. Deploy our Bicep with GitHub Actions. Cool. So there it is in the chat. If you want to go to it, you'll get all the same information that I'm going to be demoing. So I got interested in this article because I thought it was really, really useful. It's a great introduction into DevOps automation, because one of the pillars, the 5 pillars of DevOps, is automation. So what we're going to do is get into this. So we're not going to talk anymore. We're going to work. So first thing I need to do is create a resource group. What is a resource group? It's a group for the resources that I actually need to create. It's going to hold all of the resources that we need and allow us to move them back and forth into other resource groups if we need to. It'll allow us to set up a bunch of things like IAM. It will also keep logging of all the different deployments that were done to this resource group. And if you want to move some of these resources into another resource group, you can do that as well. So we're going to get started by doing AZ group create -n. And the name of the group we'll create is GitHub stream. And the location will be where it's going to actually live. US East is the closest to me. So I'm going to pick that one. So I'll go ahead and I'll create this resource group. You'll get, let me go ahead. It's East US. Duh. You do it live, right? So we'll create the resource group. Now we get a little bit of JSON back, letting us know that we actually created our resource group. The next thing we're going to need is an Azure AD service principal. This is going to create the credentials that we're actually going to need. So you can see the output is like this. I'm going to copy this. Let's just create a new file. Let's turn on word wrap. Cool. And so what we're going to do is create for RBAC a new service principal. I'll just go ahead and I'll update the name. I'll just call it J. Gord SP. The role is contributor. The scope is going to be the subscription and the resource groups that I'm actually working on. And so here's my subscription ID. It came right out when we created a resource group. So all I have to do is replace this. And then, of course, there's the resource group that we're working on that we're going to scope this service principal to, so we don't have a drift. We'll go ahead, we'll do that. And so we'll copy this line, we'll bring it into our terminal, and it's going to create some credentials for me. So you're not going to be able to keep these very long so don't worry that I've got them here. You're not going to be able to use them. I'm going to delete these credentials before I finish today. But what these credentials essentially do is create an ID and a secret, a subscription ID that you have. It's in the output, a tenant ID, the Active Directory endpoint URL that you're actually accessing. For me, it's login on Microsoft Online, our ARM endpoint URL, management.azure.com, graph information, SQL management input. We've got all this stuff that we can use. And so these are our credentials. And our credentials are going to allow us to pass between GitHub Actions and Azure. So we're actually going to move between these two services. And so what we need to do is configure the GitHub secrets. And to do that, I'm going to need to create a repository. So I'll go over here to GitHub. I will see I've got all my repos. I'll go ahead and I'll hit plus, new repository, and we'll just call it GitHub Stream. Cool. We'll keep it public. I'll add a README. I'll go ahead and create the repository. Now we've got a repo ready. All I need to do is go to code, copy that. Let me just do make dir stream. Let's go into stream. And then we're going to git clone the repository. And so now we've got our actual stream. We can go ahead and open this directory and we'll see it's just a straight up directory. And so what we'll do is we'll bring this over here and we'll open it up. Don't save. Oh, what did I do? All right, well, I accidentally closed the file with my credentials. So no big deal, just make them again. So we'll go back, terminal. I'll delete the other ones that we had. So right here. Here's our README. Let's create a new terminal. Why won't I be able to create a new terminal here, folks? It's all right, no problem. Let's just close this. Let's reopen it. You do it live, folks. It always gets interesting, doesn't it? So I've done this once before, and I'm going to actually do it from scratch like we saw before. So let me go back, open recent. We'll open up stream. Do some cleanup here. And we'll open up that terminal. There we go. Let me go ahead and rerun that GitHub, or I should say that credential creation. So like I said, just copy. And so let's go to new file, just drop that in. resource group J Gord stream, subscription ID, we'll get, we'll do easy, actually even easier. I'll just get my subscription ID. If we go here into the portal, and in the portal, I've got some stuff hidden. Let me just unhide it. We'll go to resource groups. You can see I've got my subscription listed here. GitHub stream right there. Here's my subscription ID. So let's go ahead. GitHub stream, subscription ID, paste it in there like we did before. Word wrap would help. Cool. So paste in our subscription ID. Then we'll just give it a name like we did before. App123, role as contributor. It's scooped to that scope to that resource group. We'll create it, and then we'll just see it'll output all what we need. More than application. Oh, all right, no problem. Name. There's already something named app123. So we'll just call it J.A. Gord app123. Okay. Okay, there we go. It's creating that contributor role. I'll go ahead, I'll copy these credentials, and we'll save them. We're not going to save them in our repository. That's not safe. What we're going to do is create GitHub secrets. And so to create the GitHub secrets we're going to go over here. We're going to go to settings. We'll go to secrets. And here we're able to create some secrets for our repo. So there are no secrets in here right now, and we're going to create one. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to create our new secret. We're going to have Azure credentials. So that's going to create a GitHub, I guess the best way to put it, it's like a variable that you would use in a script or some code. And it's going to save it so we can call those Azure credentials when we need them. So we'll go ahead, we'll add this secret. So let's see, what secret do we need next? The next one we're going to need is the Azure resource group. That's the actual resource group that I created. So what was our resource group name? GitHub stream. So just new repository secret, Azure resource group. Just copy the name, pop it over there. Great. We'll add that secret. Next secret we're going to need is our Azure subscription ID. And we found that before. So let's go into new repository secret, Azure subscription. And what we'll do is go back here. We'll grab the subscription ID, we'll just paste it in as a value and add secret. So now we've got our secrets configured so that GitHub Actions can actually create resources within Azure. Okay, so we're getting real close. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the Bicep template. So there's tons of Bicep templates out there. This is a real easy one. And so I'm just going to wget it here. And all this is going to do, you can see it if I have the VS Code extension installed, and we're going to see that little arm that says Bicep is understood. And you can see here, we've got a parameter that's our storage prefix. That's the name that we're going to be getting. Let's view word wrap. Cool. And so we can go ahead and set a unique storage name based on the account that we're going to create. So we're going to create a storage account using this. And so it gives you all these different parameters that were allowed, like standard LRS, standard GRS, so all the different replication levels. And the parameter that we have set here is standard LRS. If I wanted to update it and change it, I could put it over here. The next parameter that we've got here is the resource group and the location that we actually are going to create our storage in. You can see right here, location. So it's going to base the creation on East US of where exactly our storage account is going to be created. So we've got this ready to go Bicep file. And the next thing we're going to do is create a workflow. And so the workflow needs to be stored in the GitHub workflows folder. So I'm just going to do maker -p dot GitHub/workflows. And so now we've got this workflows directory created. And that's where we're going to actually be able to store this file. So I like to do it this way. I just like to do touch, and we'll call it deploy bicep file.yml. Cool. Put it into this GitHub directory, workflows. Move that, yes. I could have just CD'd it into that directory, but I didn't. So now we've got this blank YAML file, and we're going to replace the context of the YAML file with this. And so let's go ahead and take a quick look at it. So the GitHub action is going to say on push, so push to the repository that we're actually creating this for. We're going to use we're going to call this push an Azure ARM push. And what we're going to do within here is do a build and deploy. It runs on this Ubuntu latest image for the runner. And then it's going to check out the code at the main repository. It's going to log into Azure using our Azure credentials that we created. So that's the reason why we created that secret. Then we're going to create the subscription ID. Or I should say we're going to reference the subscription ID that we created as a secret. We're going to reference the resource group as the secret. Then we're going to actually deploy the template that we have here. So that's what this /azure deploy.bicep, that's this file right over here. Okay. So we've also got it. It's like if there's a standard error failure that happens, it won't fail the entire run. The parameters that we have here, we see here storage prefix equals my store. We could use a parameters file if we want to. If we take a look back at the Bicep, you can see unique storage name. The storage name is all set up using this storage prefix string. And so that parameter gets passed here at the bottom. You can see storage prefix equals my store. I can call it my store. I can call it AA Gord store. So there you go. I think this needs to be under 11 characters, something like that. It's got to be unique. We just call it JStore 1, just to make sure we have a unique prefix. Okay. So I'm going to save that file. And once I've saved that file, now I'm ready to actually push it to GitHub. And so you can see there's .github with our file that we've created for our deployment using that GitHub Actions workflow file. We've got our Bicep template here. So let's go ahead and git add. You've added another Git repo. Well, what did I do here? Oh, I see. RMSF GitHub stream. It had an extra pocket directory in there we didn't need. So git add, git commit -m, and we're just going to push it to main because we're doing a demo. And we'll just call it the commit message first commit. And so we'll git push. So what's that going to do? Let's take a look in GitHub. So let's go back to GitHub stream, go to actions. And what we should do, let's take a look. Where's our dirt? what did I do here? Okay, so what did I do here? I put it in another directory. No big deal. Let's just go ahead. Code, copy. This is what happens when you do things too fast. GitHub. So we'll do git clone. No problem. We'll go ahead and take this, deploy file in this GitHub stream, just move it all over. Okay. So we'll just take this GitHub, move it into GitHub stream. So that's the workflow directory. Here's the Bicep file. Let's move that over into GitHub stream. Cool. So let's try that again. So now we have everything. Where do we have everything? So CP Azure deploy .bicep into GitHub stream. Cool. So GitHub stream. Let's make sure we have our GitHub directory. We do. Okay, so we have everything we need now. So sorry about that. You know, you do it live. Sometimes you do it too fast. Cool. So let's go ahead and try that again. So git add, git commit minus m, new deploy, git push. Okay, got it this time. Awesome. So let's refresh. We'll see, here's the deployment files. Here's everything we need. Let's go over to actions. And we can see that the action has started running. So here's new deploy. And what we're going to do is go ahead, let's take a look at this deployment. So we'll go to build and deploy. All right, we have to wait on a runner. Oh boy, there we go. So first it starts by setting up the job. So the very, very first part, the logging into Azure, we're going to be using the checkout action. So we check out the actual code that's in here. That'll make sure that we actually have our Bicep deployment file in need. And so I'm getting, if you hear those emails, I'm getting the runs for GitHub Action as notifications. Cool. So this is running. And if we actually can go ahead and see, it starts the ARM deployment, passes our subscription, the resource, the template, the parameters, the fail on standard error is false. We have our user agent and host environment. And so now it's actually validating the template, no warnings. Then we see there's our checkout that actually cleans up everything. And then our job is completed. We clean up our orphan process and we can see the light's green, the trap is clean. So let's go over here to our resource group. We'll click refresh. And there's our resource that we've created, JSTOR 1x, blah, blah, blah. And so now if we wanted to make a change and we wanted to modify this, all we need to do is just go ahead. Let's say we're going to change this to JAG11211 and save it. All we have to do is git add, and I'll bring up the actions area again for us. Git add, git commit minus m, second commit, git push, and so that should trigger. Yep, that triggers the next commit, I should say, and we can see it's going to run the file, but here's our new storage prefix. Excuse me. We'll go to our actual runner. We'll see it sets up the job, runs through our checkout process, and then eventually it'll execute the Bicep. So what it does is it runs the Bicep process on the Bicep file and then converts that into JSON, sends that to Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager then takes that template and creates our resource. So if we go to GitHub stream, it'll take a second. still building it. So, like I said, when you do it live. Sometimes it takes a few minutes. So we see it started 47 seconds ago, 51. And all we got to do is wait this out for just a few minutes, or a minute or two doesn't take very long. And then once that's completed, we'll go ahead. And so here, there's my notification. I got the email saying that our new resource run within GitHub Actions is completed. So say I started, and you can disable these notifications in email if you want. I like to have them because I like to be able to go back and see whether or not my runs passed or failed. I can always go and check the logs and see what happened. All right, so it finished. We've got our action deployment done. Our post checkout, our trap is clean because the light's green. And if we go back here, go to refresh, we can see this other account that we needed was created. And so we don't have to just do things like create a single storage account. We could go back into this Bicep. We can type resource, let's say a virtual machine. Ubuntu. And that's the great thing about Bicep and extension for VS Code. We've got all these snippets. And then we could take this particular template, configure some parameters. So like computer name, administrator. So we could just go ahead to the top, param, defaults, and we can change the type to string. The identifier is the name of the parameter. So we can just call it, say, computer name. And we could add our default value, which could be its prefix. So we could add like a random generator if we wanted to. But I think you understand the point of what I'm getting at is that we don't need to just use this demo resource that creation that we get from our tutorial. But I mean, it's pretty simple and straightforward, and it's why I shared it. So that's really it for me today. I went ahead, I showed you quickly how to deploy a Bicep file via GitHub Actions. We created some automation. We created GitHub secrets so that we'd actually execute. We did all this really great stuff in only just a few minutes. So if you have questions, you can put them in the comment section, or you can get in touch with me. It's at jdestro on Twitter. You can see it right there. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.